For over 600 days, they cashed the checks. Month after month, the payments arrived in the mail, addressed for the care and support of a child. But there was a terrible, hidden truth behind every envelope they opened. The girl they were being paid to look after, their own adopted daughter, had already been gone for years. This is not just a story about a missing child. It's a story about a performance, a lie so convincing it held a family, a community, and even investigators at bay. It's the heartbreaking tale of Erica Parsons, and the parents who pretended she was still alive long after she had vanished. Our story begins not with a scream, but with a quiet, rehearsed explanation. It was December of 2011, in a seemingly ordinary suburban home. To the neighbors, and even to her siblings, 13-year-old Erica Parsons had simply moved on. Her adoptive parents, Sandy and Casey Parsons, delivered the news with practiced ease. Erica had gone to live with her biological grandmother. They painted a picture of a fresh start, a teenage girl seeking connection with her roots. It was a tidy story, designed to answer questions before they were even asked. And for a long time, it worked. But the best lies often have a fragile center. The story felt off to Erica's older brother, Jamie. There were no goodbyes, no contact information, no excited stories from his parents about how Erica was settling into her new life. In fact, mentioning her name seemed to fill the house with a strange, heavy tension. His father, Sandy, would grow pale and anxious. The details they offered were vague and seemed to change slightly with each telling. Where exactly was this grandmother? How did they get in touch? A deep, instinctual dread began to grow in Jamie's mind. His last memory of his sister was of a girl who looked ghostly, pale, gray, and utterly exhausted. He remembered her saying she couldn't breathe, only to be dismissed and sent to stand in a corner. And then, she was just gone. That gnawing dread eventually turned into action. In the summer of 2013, nearly 2 years after Erica's supposed departure, Jamie went to the police. With that single act, the carefully constructed facade began to crack. An official missing persons investigation was launched, and suddenly, the Parsons' tidy story was subjected to the harsh light of scrutiny. Detectives descended on the family home. They pulled up floorboards, searched the yard with ground-penetrating radar hoping, and dreading, to find signs of a clandestine grave. They followed tips that came in from across the country, from reported roadside sightings to calls from concerned psychics. The FBI joined the effort, bringing national resources and publicity. Age-progressed photos of what Erica might look like at 15 were plastered on billboards and flyers. The community was captivated and horrified. A child had vanished from their midst, and the people who should have been most worried seemed oddly defensive. Sandy and Casey Parsons went on the offensive to protect their narrative. They granted media interviews and even appeared on national television. Sitting on a famous talk show couch, they presented themselves as bewildered, hurt parents. Their story evolved slightly. Erica wasn't just living with her grandmother, she was a rebellious teenager who had chosen to cut them off. They claimed they had tried to reach her, but the phone numbers were disconnected. They said they believed she was safe but stubborn. They portrayed themselves as victims of a teenager's ingratitude, but to investigators, every word they spoke seemed calculated. The story had too many holes to hold water. They claimed to have met the grandmother at a specific McDonald's, yet couldn't produce a single receipt or witness from that day. They said another one of their children was on the trip, but that child denied it. Most damningly, when pressed for the grandmother's most basic contact information, a full name, a phone number, an address, even the Facebook profile they said she used, they came up completely empty. Detectives combed through records in Asheville, where they claimed the grandmother lived, and found no one matching the description who had any connection to Erica. The person at the center of their entire story was a ghost. So, if Erica wasn't with a grandmother, where was she? The police were now operating under a grim assumption: Erica was likely dead, and her adoptive parents were involved. But without a body, a murder case was nearly impossible to prove. They needed a new angle, a pressure point. And they found it not in a grave, but in paperwork. Investigators began tracing financial records. What they discovered was a cold, bureaucratic crime that betrayed the deeper horror. Sandy and Casey Parsons had continued to collect monthly adoption assistance subsidies from the state. They kept cashing food stamp benefits allocated for Erica's nourishment. For nearly 2 years after they said she had left, they accepted government money intended for her care and well-being. The dates were clear, the fraud was undeniable. Here was a concrete crime they could prosecute. In 2014, the hammer came down. Sandy and Casey were arrested and charged with a staggering 76 federal counts of fraud, identity theft, and collecting illegal government benefits. It was a strategic masterpiece by prosecutors. The goal wasn't just to punish them for theft, it was to apply immense pressure, to force a choice between decades in prison for fraud or cooperating to solve bigger mystery. Crucially, it meant they would be separated, held in different facilities, unable to coordinate their stories. For Sandy Parsons, the walls were closing in. Facing the overwhelming evidence and a future defined by prison bars, something finally broke. In 2016, over 5 years after Erica disappeared, he agreed to lead authorities to the truth. He was escorted to a remote, wooded area in Chesterfield County, South Carolina, a place connected to Casey's past. Within minutes, he pointed to a patch of disturbed earth. There, in a shallow grave, investigators found the remains of Erica Parsons. The missing child had been here all along, buried on a lonely hillside. With the discovery, Sandy's confession flowed. He described a chilling series of events from that December night in 2011. He claimed he awoke to Casey telling him Erica was dead. There was no panic, no immediate call for help. Instead, they placed Erica's small body into a large plastic storage tote. For 2 days, that tote remained in their home. The family continued its routine, even hosting a Christmas party, with the terrible secret sitting mere feet away. Then, they transported the container to South Carolina. In a final act of desecration, they poured bleach over her body in a futile attempt to destroy evidence before covering her with soil. Sandy revealed they had removed the batteries from their cell phones during these trips, a primitive but deliberate effort to avoid digital tracking. The recovery of Erica's remains was handled with a profound respect that contrasted sharply with her treatment in life. The lead detective, determined to offer some dignity, ensured her body bag was left partially unzipped. He later explained he did it so she wouldn't have to be in the dark anymore. He placed a small stuffed animal beside her for the journey back. It was a gesture of compassion from a stranger, offering the kindness her own parents had withheld. Now, the silent victim could finally speak. Erica's remains were sent to a forensic anthropologist for a meticulous examination. What the bones revealed was a narrative of unimaginable suffering that spanned years, not moments. Her tiny skeleton was a map of prolonged torture. She had suffered multiple broken bones, including ribs and shoulder blades. Critically, some fractures showed signs of partial healing, indicating they were inflicted at different times. This was chronic, repeated violence. The most heartbreaking finding, however, was her profound stunting. Based on the length of her bones, her skeletal development was equivalent to that of a 9-year-old child. Erica Parsons was 13 when she died, but years of systematic starvation and abuse had frozen her physical growth. The official cause of her death was this combination: homicide by child abuse and malnutrition. The forensic truth gave voice to the whispers from the past. Her brother Jamie's recollections took on a new, horrific clarity. He described a home where Erica was treated as less than a sibling. Beatings with belts or household objects were common. He recalled a chilling term his mother used: friendly reminders. This was the label for bending Erica's fingers backward until they nearly touched her wrist. Family photo albums, once shown as evidence of a normal family, now serve as evidence of her isolation. In picture after picture, while her siblings smiled for the camera, Erica was often captured turned away, facing a corner of the room, a literal representation of the punishment she endured daily. With a body and a confession, the legal path was clear. The fraud convictions had already put them behind bars, but now they faced the ultimate charge. In 2018, Casey and Sandy Parsons were charged with first-degree murder. Facing the death penalty in North Carolina, they both eventually pled guilty. Casey's plea was delivered in a cold, emotionless tone that offered no real explanation, only a hollow statement of regret. Sandy, likely hoping for a deal, pled to second-degree murder. In the end, their sentences ensured they would spend the rest of their lives in prison. Casey is serving a life sentence, while Sandy received a term of 33 to 43 years, making him eligible for parole only in his 80s. The community that had been haunted by Erica's disappearance now mobilized to honor her in death. A public funeral was held, paid for by donations from strangers who had followed her story. Hundreds attended, offering the love, tears, and remembrance she was denied in life. One investigator poignantly noted, "Erica got more love from the community in her death than she ever got from her adoptive family in her life." The story of Erica Parsons is a devastating lesson in how evil can hide behind a facade of normalcy. It shows how systems designed to protect children can fail when lies are convincing and abuse is hidden behind closed doors. It underscores the importance of listening to the quiet doubts, like Jamie's, and pursuing the cold, factual trails, like the fraud, that can break a case wide open. Most of all, it is the story of a stolen childhood and a justice that, though painfully delayed, refused to let her name be forgotten. If this deep dive into a case that challenges our understanding of trust and family has held your attention, please help us ensure such stories are not overlooked. Liking this video supports our channel, Winds of Thought, and helps us continue our research. Subscribe and hit the bell icon to join our community as we explore the most complex narratives of our time. Thank you for watching, and for remembering Erica.